Brian Myerson was the recipient of a double transplant 14 years ago. He's now one of Australia's most passionate advocates for organ and tissue donation. He joins me now live in the studio. Brian, welcome to you.
Thank you, John.
Great news, of course, that Mark Colvin has received a living kidney transplant, but in many ways that story sort of mistells it because there are so many that are waiting for this opportunity.
Well, I mean, that's the biggest thing. For Mark, it's just the most wonderful thing. Having watched Mark go through what he went through was really distressing, and to see him well now is fantastic. But as you said, the issue is the people who are waiting and dying while they wait, and this is the tragedy.
Kidney transplantation is almost in a unique category. There are some partial liver transplants from live donors as well, but with kidney transplants, you can give up a kidney to somebody.
Yeah, well, this is the wonderful thing, is that there are so many people on the kidney waiting list, and there's no doubt that living donation is a wonderful supplement to the deceased donation program. But our focus is really on the deceased donation program, because that's really where we can make a big, big change.
And tell us your story, Brian. You received 2 donor organs.
Yeah, I was very fortunate. As you can see, this is in memory of my donor, Matthew. I received a combined kidney pancreas transplant in 1999, and it's been the most amazing thing.
Matthew died?
Matthew died. Matthew passed away, and his family decided to follow his wishes to be an organ donor, and I was one of the very lucky recipients of it.
That is such a difficult decision. We just heard in the news there that the grandson of Tommy Raudonikis, a football legend who died in a freak accident on the weekend, he's going to become an organ donor, a 15-year-old boy's organs going to so many people. How hard is that for families to make that call on such a day like this?
Look, it's unimaginable for us to be in that position. And I'm on the other side, I'm on the recipient side. But I've met a number of donor families, including my own, and what they go through is terrible trauma, watching their loved one die. But there is a lot of evidence to say that the families who have a positive experience in the hospital and then become a volunteer to donate the organs of their loved one, that it is so positive long-term for that family. As long as it's handled really well in the hospital, as I say, if their experience in the hospital is positive, then it has amazing ramifications for that whole family for a long period of time.
How do you make it more positive? You spend a lot of time in hospitals with dialysis and everything else. You know the look on the faces of family members who've got a loved one in intensive care. They're getting the worst imaginable news, and then somebody gently broaches the subject. Do you know, are they an organ donor?
Well, that's the absolute skill, and that is what we talk about, the training of those people. If they are really well trained, number one, to identify all the potential donors, which is step number one, and then once they've done that, to then work with the family, so if the family feels comfortable, the family feels that they understand the process, they know exactly what to expect as the process goes on, and all the evidence from around the world seems to suggest that if that family has call it a positive experience, that they're then more likely to consent to the organ donation. And that's really the essence of it. All this talk out in the public about family conversations goes out the window when you're in that terrible, terrible situation. And that's where the skill of the people working with that family in the hospital counts so much.
And the good news, Brian, is that in the last 4 or 5 years there has been a significant increase in the number of organ recipients from donors. And I mean, can we put it down to a singular thing? Is it awareness? Is it more people ticking that box on their licence?
To be honest, I don't believe it's anything to do with awareness or people talking out there. It's what happens in the hospital. It's how the hospital systems. And there's no doubt there has been a fair amount of training, not the amount of training that we would like, but there has been training, and there is no doubt that it is starting to influence. Last month, I don't know if you know the figures, but 50 donors, this is a record number. That is the most amazing news, not for the general public, but for those people waiting and dying, to know that 50 people donors, so much larger than has ever happened before. That gives them hope, and that's essential. The big thing, our challenge, is to take that one. We don't want it to be a peak. What is the essential thing is that through the reform process, that this becomes an ongoing number.
Brian, lovely to see you. Thanks very much for coming in today.
Thank you.
And the Four Corners